Entrepreneurs on born, they're brewed. You are now listening to the Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's grow!
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Podcast. I am your host, Adam McChesney, and I want to thank you for being here today. Today, we aren't live from Half Coast Studios, but actually my home office. Thank you, as always, though, to Half Coast for the amazing setup and sponsoring the show. If you are looking to start your podcast or take your current one to the next level, then you need to come check out what they have going on. Contact them today for a free consultation. If you're listening, please be sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on the platform of your choice. We would love for you to share this amazing content on social media by tagging me. In this way, we can get this incredible content out to more people. I'm excited about today's episode. This guest has an incredible entrepreneurial story, and I'm excited for my audience to hear about this amazing new video conferencing platform that we're actually utilizing today. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see it in real time, along with his insights from his business and life in general. My guest today is Angel Munoz. He is the founder and president of Beacon, this amazing platform, as I just discussed. He is also the founder, president, and CEO of Mass Luminosity, which is a global development and experimental technology company. Angel, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Adam. I'm thrilled to be with you on the show.
Yeah, we were talking before, and I didn't realize how much we had in common with everything that's going on.
Yeah, life is that way. We're like streams of rivers heading to the ocean, and you can capture, like, even the person. I've met lots of people from across different aspects of life, and you always find some commonality somehow. And you're in St. Louis, right, Adam?
Yes.
I lived in St. Louis for about 2 years, so I know it pretty well. So I loved it. I loved it there. I had lots of fun, lots of great people there. And I don't know why they call it the Show Me State. Why do they call it that? Missouri, the Show Me State.
To be honest, that's a good question. I know the answer, and I've probably heard it, but haven't been asked that question in a while. So that history just went right
I give you some homework, Adam.
I'll get that figured out. But yeah, super excited for today's episode, and for our guest. If you're tuning in for the first time, or if you're a repeat listener, we certainly appreciate it. But we like to compare the entrepreneurial journeys of our guests to that of the beer brewing process, which is kind of where our outline comes from and where we get the name Entrepreneur. So, Angel, we always like to kind of start out with everything that's currently happening right now. And there's some amazing things. I know we just talked about some exciting news that you'll be able to share with us about everything that you guys have going on. But tell us about Beacon and kind of where this all came about, and then we'll kind of work backwards from there.
Okay, sounds great. Well, do you want, if we're going to work backwards, do you want the present, or do you want me to go to the past first and work forward from there?
Yeah, you can start at the past of Beacon and to where it's at now.
Yeah, so thank you. So Beacon started as an idea because one of the principles that we have at the parent company of Beacon, which is Mass Luminosity, is that people should live where they're most comfortable living. So that you should not drag people across the world or across cities to have them work where you want them to work. And we needed a solution that was as close to reality as being in the same room with people, as close as we could get. And with that, about 6 years ago, Theodore and myself started to work. Theodore Atroshenko is our CTO of the company. And him and I started to work on first on looking what the state of affairs was in the industry. And what we found is that, the state of development of the technology the bar was low. And so we couldn't depend on that. And, and we started working on what we know today as Beacon. And we just could not understand why people weren't upgrading the experience. So we can talk about that later. But then we quickly figured out what was going on, that it's really, really hard programming to get, this type of technology to work well in super high resolutions. So last year, we were able to launch, basically, it's almost quite almost exactly a year from today. It's probably a year and a couple of weeks. We launched Beacon X. We refer to it as X because it's we think about it as the experience. So Beacon Experience, Beacon X, and we that was the moment that we were nervous about, because we were like, okay, we've created an incredible platform, and we do not know if people will like it or not, and will they use it. And fortunately, we've had about 600,000 people join Beacon without advertising. We just did our first ads the last 2 months, so that didn't really attract that audience. And and I am super pleased with the platform, and we continue to work on it. Of course, like all platforms, we sometimes run into a few issues, but the team that we have, our engineering team led by Theodore, they're fastidious and incredibly dedicated to a perfect experience. And as we just that's our goal, to just try to get to perfect, and that's driving this experience right now. So it was a little bit out of wanting to be close to, as a team that worked from all parts of the different of the world, that motivated it. And but we wanted it to feel real. We didn't want little stamp size images that look fake. And with that, we created several principles that drive the Beacon development, and that's what you're experiencing right now, and your viewers are too.
That's amazing. And yeah, I know we were talking just the resolution of the picture, to be able to see, like you talk about, being able to work from anywhere, or be able to see with inside the office, and of people that are on the platform that you're talking to remotely is just really cool. So talk to me about some of the features that Beacon has that really sets it apart from other options that are out there.
I think that the one that hits people the hardest when they join a Beacon call, well, there are two, and they're separate, that really kind of drive commentary right away. One of them is the simplicity of it. So Beacon, you click one link and you're in the call. So there's no waiting room, there's none of that nonsense, and you're straight into the call. And then if that wasn't impacting enough, when the person comes on, you feel almost like you're looking through glass. It doesn't feel like you're talking on a video conferencing service. So a lot went into that. We worried about things like frames per second and resolution, as far as up to 4K resolution. We worried about how sound is perceived, and color saturation, and basically the dimensions of the image, and what do you see in the image. These are the things that drove our development. Is we want it to be as cinematic as possible, and for it to feel like, okay, the goal was, I want to. In fact, we call it crystal clear technology. It's the basic technology that drives this, because it's crystal clear. It's like looking through glass. And then it also encompasses not just you, but your surrounding. And it brings your surrounding into the picture in a way that feels more natural. When we meet people in real life, we don't sit there and basically put a box around them or frame them and just talk into their face. That's not only creepy, but it's kind of weird. And that's what we expect people to do on video conferencing. And that is not the natural way of speech between humans. We are fine. Truly, we're easily distracted. We cannot be looking at one thing for too long. That's tiring to us. So by you being able to scan my office, Adam, it's just a more comfortable and more natural experience for you.
No, I love it. And if you're not watching on YouTube, if you're listening to the audio version, one, I definitely recommend you checking out Beacon, in which we'll have the links to all of that in the show notes. But watch this YouTube video. You'll be able to see the crystal clearness that he's talking about. And then the simplicity aspect. I think that's one thing that, especially people, obviously when COVID happened, everyone went remote. And people that have never been used to video conferencing, the one thing that they complain with about a lot of platforms is it's not simple, and that they can't figure out how to get into it. And then they're in the waiting room, or then they're trying to figure out a passcode. So I think you guys are really at the forefront of bridging the technology aspect of connecting more people and doing it in a much simpler way, which is awesome. What I know we just talked about some of the awesome features. What has some of the feedback been from some of the users that have been using it that are like, hey, this is just making my life easier? Or what's some of the feedback been that you can share with us?
Yeah, so the feedback has been incredible. We what we find is that people like using it when the environment is important. So a lot of people are using it. For example, there's this one user that he's from Scotland, and he had to go on vacation, but his wife stayed behind, and he sent pictures, excuse me, of what the wife was seeing, and he was at a beach, and it was so lifelike that it was unbelievable. And he was on the phone, and so he was actually thanking us for being able he was able to share that experience with his wife. That's kind of where we fall. After every beacon call, you can rank the call, and you can basically have stars, and you can say what was this, and the average is definitely way above anyone else in the marketplace. So not only are people having a great experience on Beacon, but it's actually changing the way people perceive of being remote with somebody that you care for. So that's really what actually motivates me personally, is to be able to bridge those situations where you are not close. Let's say if you're married or whatever, and you can't be with someone, and it's an important moment that you want to share. Do you really want to share it on just one of the competitor platforms that are just average, or wouldn't you want it to be crystal clear? And that's where we shine, and that's why we call it Beacon, because it's like a beacon of light. It's shining above everyone else.
Yeah, no, that's very impactful and very powerful. I know, like I said, definitely check out this video, but see it for yourself. I mean, there is a noticeable difference, and you can feel it. You almost feel like you're there, right? As Angel mentioned. And so it's a really unique aspect. It's really transforming the way that I believe people are going to get excited again about video conferencing. Because I know for a while people are like, hey, I'm sick of this, a lot in part because it's not simple. The picture potentially isn't great. There's all these different aspects that they're really doing to transform that.
I think that that's the root of what's named Zoom fatigue. Is the and I you know I'm sorry that I have to use a competitor's name, but they do have that, people refer to it, and I think it has to do with the poor quality. If you don't care about resolution, if you don't care about dimensions of the image, if you don't care about color saturation, if you don't care about, I mean, all these aspects, then yeah, then if you're looking at something and the FPS is low and your brain has to fill in those gaps, that's a real tiring experience. You can do it, but just for a short period of time. And it becomes another thing that is really annoying about other platforms is the fact that they have not optimized the packets that are separated by the nature of the technology, which are the video packets and the audio packets. So you want a person, you want to hear the person as they're moving their lips. To have that lip sync be out of sync, it's really annoying. It happens sometimes when you're even streaming a movie or something. I have to stop it. I just cannot do that. It's almost like torture for me. And that's exactly what happens on these platforms. And people think that's the only way. Well, if you think that's the only way, I invite you to try Beacon, because that's not our way. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm right there with you. Every time it seems like anytime a movie comes on where that's going on, it's got to find the next one, and you move on from there. So I
there's so
know, I
many
know,
options. So
I know the feeling. I know the feeling. So I know we were talking about some exciting news that just came out for you guys. Talk to us about that. I was super excited to read that article, but fill us in on kind of where things are at right now.
Right. We actually have a few things going on at one time at the company. For This is on Beacon Technologies, and for a company that's a year old and has still not launched its premium or paid version, we have been fortunate enough, Adam, to attract a lot of attention from venture capital firms and investment bankers. And there's an entire financial group that is very focused around the development of Beacon and would like to help us take Beacon to the next possible level where it becomes a force, like all the others are. And more recently, or most recently, what happened was that we went through a due diligence process with a Boston, Massachusetts based venture capital firm called 1414 Ventures. And they were very thorough in their analysis of Beacon and of the possibility of Beacon being successful in the marketplace. And we recently announced, which is what you're referring to, that they are syndicate they have invested themselves, and they're also syndicating and doing what's known as a Series A, which means just the first official capital raise that you do with companies instead of being individuals. The first, for those of you that are entrepreneurs, the first round of investment that you get from family and friends is named that, family and friends. And then once you get, venture capital firm, you start dividing them into Series A, B, and so forth. And so the Series A is 5 million. It values Beacon at 50 million, which is, a great start. And we're super excited to have them as partners. They're fantastic. Now, the aspect that they liked about Beacon, Adam, was something we have not talked about, and they are mostly a privacy, and they're into digital identity and privacy. And one of the things that they really liked about Beacon is that our connections are encrypted, and that we do not spy on our servers for for what people talk about, and that files transfers during a call can be done straight peer to peer, so on a peer to peer encrypted connection, so no one can interfere. And then they really liked our safety features, from two-factor authentication, that obviously protects your data and the information on your account, to our biometric and hardware login safety measures. So, and we also have something called the Vault, which I don't think you know about, Adam, which is you can actually have, within the privacy of Beacon, you can have ultra private chats, because we have a text thing, and you can put them in a vault that requires a separate password to access, so that if somebody actually manages to break into your account, then there's a second level of work they have to do to try to break into the vault. So, so we do kind of a 1-2 punch on that, and a lot of people have liked that a lot. So, it's an era where people unfortunately are getting used to the fact that everybody's spying on them. Maybe it's generational. I just think that it's unconscionable to allow companies free access to our information like that, and that's really what attracted 1414.
That's incredible. And yeah, the privacy aspect, I think, is huge. As you kind of mentioned, it's kind of becoming a norm that, okay, hey, there's likely going to be a situation where my stuff gets stolen. I like the aspect of the vault to be able to have that extra piece of security. I think it gives an extra peace of mind, especially with so much business wise and even personal happening on teleconferencing through video. So I think that that's a next level feature that's really going to attract a lot of people, especially some of those higher level businesses.
I think it definitely was underreported, Adam, but last year, Zoom settled a large lawsuit for nearly $100 million, because they were selling the information from their clients. And they have enough money to suppress that kind of news, but people should look that up, because they settled and they admitted that they were doing that. And so that would never happen to us and on Beacon. It's just, we're not in the business of spying on you, Adam, as a human being. We think that privacy is a fundamental right that all humans should have. And think about it. Think about, for those of you that are listening, and and probably have a bit of a skeptical mind. I'm going to ask you a simple question. Would the American Revolution would have happened without privacy if the king was informed of all? It just, privacy is important for lots of reasons. It's not just for evil, it's also for good. And sometimes to change the system that we have right now, it requires privacy. And that's what we offer.
Absolutely. I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people, and really be able to push this platform forward. So I'm excited to see where that goes, and we'll circle back to talk about some of the future stuff on Beacon and have everything in the show notes. But Angel, we would love to, hear a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. Obviously, you've accomplished a lot. Talk to us about three main things, or we like to call them ingredients, that have made you successful along the way.
Oh, that's a hard question for me to answer. That's a good question. Give me a second. Let me see if I can say things that appear to be modest, but they're not. Um, I would say one of them is I'm obstinate. So once I say, or to myself, this is what I want to create, I just, I just don't give up. So, and, Beacon was one of the hardest to develop because it really challenged us and challenged us in ways that I have not been challenged before. And it was very difficult to develop. I joke around, it's not actually a joke. It's actually true that we discovered in the process of developing Beacon, we discovered 1,000 ways of how not to do video conferencing. And in fact, I would say that some of our competitors are in that 1,000 group. And we found that there's only really one true way to do excellent video conferencing. So I would say obstinate is one. Another one that is not so flattering is a bit of a oversized ego, because you need to be able to, why that's functional is because it locks you from not listening to all the people that are right and telling you how that cannot be done. And you're, because of you're obstinate, and then you think that you have some gift from God, that you see the truth before any other human does, you continue to pursue it regardless of what people say. And I think that basically that's probably very much built upon ego. And the last thing I would say is not to be threatened by people who are smarter and better than you are. And that makes, you can put a great team together. And we have a phenomenal board of directors, by the way. We have a phenomenal team. Kimberly Visaraga, Ruth Reed, Theodore Atroshenko are officers of the company. Every one of them extremely talented in their own way. So not allowing that ego that protects you from listening to rational thought intervene in the process of hiring people who are better and smarter and more talented than you are is actually the ultimate secret of success.
Those last two are extremely important. The ego, and then also not being intimidated or threatened. I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that because, you start your business, or you start your product or your service or whatever it is, and you think, hey, I know it all. I was the one that helped create it. And then you realize, and I've realized really this over this last year, is I'm good at being the visionary, but I need to surround myself with people that can keep me in check and that are a lot smarter and a lot better at those things than I am.
Adam, I have a great metaphor for that I actually came up with, and it helped me dramatically. This is maybe, I really had this epiphany just recently, maybe 7 years ago. But it's being the visionary is like standing on one side of a riverbank and saying, we can get there to that other side, and we can save lots of time if we do that, and we could put a toll and charge people to cross. But building the bridge is a whole different matter. So you need experts that know. You need engineers, and you need people that can build that bridge. You need people to maintain it. You need people that can charge, people that can manage money. There's so many different aspects of a business that no matter how brilliant you are, you cannot encompass all possible things. You actually hurt the company and hurt your prospects by thinking you can do it all. So,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, why that's perpetuated is because in our society, we tend to think of one person for each company. So for example, if I ask you Apple, you would think Steve Jobs, not the current, Tim Cook CEO. You think of him; he gets all the credit. Or,
Hmm.
for example, Microsoft, you think of Steve Jobs. I mean, excuse me, you should think of Steve Jobs, but you think of Bill Gates, and he hasn't been with Microsoft in many years. So it's very simple to grab one person, in this case myself, and say, okay, you're the guy that built it all. When really it takes an entire village to create things like the Beacon experience. And that is not humility. That's just reality. That's just the way it is. And the sooner that you accept that, the easier it's going to be for you. And don't be threatened by your own staff. You were smart enough to hire them, and okay, and they are smart enough to work for you. So it's a win-win for everyone. So that would be my response to your question.
No, I love it. Thanks for that insight there. Great information. The next question that we'd love to kind of get into is kind of, for us, it's the fermentation and conditioning process. So, what is the biggest lesson, if you just had one, that you would share with someone that's an entrepreneur, either looking to get started or save them years worth of mistakes?
Um, an idea alone cannot build a company. So you have to, I would say the first thing that any entrepreneur should know is have some basic corporate finance knowledge. Do not think you can just, oh, it's just a bank account and money comes in. No, there's a lot of nuance to that. And that's one that I was fortunate enough that my first real job was as an investment banker and stockbroker. So I was in the financial industry for 12, 14 years. So that gave me kind of a leg up on other entrepreneurs, um, that were starting at sort of the same time as I was, because I really started as an entrepreneur when I was about 30. So it was a little bit later in life. And, and so anyway, I think that having clear knowledge about the structure of companies, what's the best, tax structure for you, how to manage a company properly. If you're going to call yourself CEO of a company, chief executive officer, that is not a title. That is not something you just put on there. There's legal requirements that you need to have. For example, you have a board of directors, and your company should be a C corp and not an S corp. There's lots of nuance to that. So I know people that call themselves CEO of the company, a lot of them actually, and they're the only employee. You're the owner of the company. You're not the CEO of a company. So being aware of what all this means. I mean, I understand. When I'll give you a quick story. When my children were young, uh, one of my neighbors called me and said, "Hey, it's so great how you've trained your children uh, about you." And I'm like, I had no idea what he was referring to, because that was completely not reality. And I said, "Well, I'm not sure what you mean." And he goes, "Well, what I mean is, I asked them what you do, and they said that you were CEO of a company. I'm a CEO too." I'm like, okay, good for you. I had no idea where that came from. In fact, he was the only employee of his company. So he wasn't a CEO, but I didn't, of course, I'm not going to say that to him. I wanted to be neighborly about it. But it was interesting how that offended him to a certain degree. But CEO is not a it's not a, I am, the CEO is elected by the board of directors. I serve to the board. The board, I'm the one that has to answer to the board of every single decision. No other officer in the company does that. I do. So if one of my employees or officers makes a decision and I approve it, I'm responsible for it. And the board's going to rain on me. It's not going to rain on them. So anyway, so that's the way that I think people should be knowledgeable. Knowledge is power. And you really should be knowledgeable about the structure of companies, how finance works, how you could get financing for a company, how to raise capital, and how to structure capital raises. This is a lot of information that unfortunately is not taught unless you go to a finance program in college. So I would say that's where you need to start. And that's not what entrepreneurs want to hear, by the way. So they
Yeah.
don't want to hear that.
Oh
So they
yeah,
want to
trust
hear,
me.
oh, it's, build it and they will come. No, that's not how it works. So
No, no, I appreciate you touching on that because I think, myself included, I started and I just thought, okay, hey, we just go start selling digital marketing stuff. We create this business, everything's good. No, there's the structure, there's the financial aspect, there's the budgeting, there's raising, there's lines of credit. There's all of these different things that most people don't understand or even know where to look.
right,
So
because
that's
when
amazing.
being a private person, living a private life doesn't mean that you're inexperienced about money, because you are managing finances, and they're in some aspects no different from the aspects that you manage for in a company. But you
Mhm.
have to be aware of the same things you're aware of. What can you spend? Where can you spend it? Can I afford that? Can I not afford that? It's a number of things that actually end up being quite important that uh you know most people just think of the idea, which is fine, and then go into business and realize, do you know that the average entrepreneur company fails within 2 years? So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's not good. And why? I would ask, then, if that's the fact, then why? Why are they failing at such a high rate? And I would say that's one of the main aspects. They were not prepared mentally to run a company. They were excited about an idea, and it's great for people that survive despite their lack of knowledge. But that is not common. The common aspect is that you fail. So just read. There's books. Go to download things, go take a course online, whatever it takes for you to be informed and to know basically basic finance. And that's what it takes. And then, as you
Yeah.
said, you're gonna end up managing all this spectrum of things that were not related to your idea.
Yeah,
So,
there's a whole other world that encompasses running a business for sure. So
so that's
I
the
really like the
fermentation.
finance part. That's the
Yeah,
fermentation part.
that's the
Yeah,
fermentation
absolutely.
right there.
That's the fermentation. Well, to kind of finish everything up, we'd like to talk about, the distribution aspect. So what is next for you as an entrepreneur, for Beacon? Talk to us about what the future has in store.
Yeah. So, in addition to the capital that we just raised and are raising with 1414, we do have an offer to sell Beacon, or if somebody wants to buy it. It's a publicly traded company. Unfortunately, I can't say who it is. Not that anybody would know anyway. And we are considering that. It's. I think it's a fair offer, but fair today is not fair tomorrow, right? So the passing of time. So I think the big thing that I'm excited about and that I want to do as quickly as possible, if Theodore Atrashenko makes things happen for me, is, and that's a little bit of a dig, by the way, I have to confess, is launching Beacon Max. And Beacon Max is it's Beacon on steroids. It really is. It takes it to such a high level with the integration of AI into it, where you can basically have an AI that you can interact with and can simplify most of the things that are tedious about one of these calls. It could be anything from for example, um, rescheduling a call. SAMI, which stands for Socially Advanced Machine Intelligence, can handle all these things: taking a photo, transcribing a call, recording the call, all these things that are, you have to look through the menus and all that. I guess we should do resolution too. We should actually say, hey, increase my resolution to HD. That's definitely in the powers. That'll be the next thing. In fact, I'll put it on the to-do list. So that's one thing I'm really excited about. We have a patent pending on that. We filed for 4 patents, Adam. While we were developing this, we discovered that we were doing things so differently that we were the first ones to do it that way. So out of the 4, 2 have been approved. One is under review. The examiner was real tough, and we responded to it, and now we're waiting to see if they grant us that patent, which is a big one. And then the last one has to do with the integration of AI. I think it is the one that's pending, is the integration of AI into this. So translation on the go. So instead, you can do either. You can have it being subtitled. So as I'm speaking, let's say if I were to speak Spanish, you could see it in English and then respond to me, and I can see what you're saying in Spanish. Or we can have Sammy, which is the name of, like I said, of our AI, and or virtual. But let's call her a virtual assistant, and she can actually translate as I'm speaking to you, just like having a translator at any any major government event. And she has a bad habit of correcting herself for optimum perfection. So she'll say the statement and go, okay, maybe I can say it better. So that kind of is a little bit annoying still. But once we refine that and she tries to, if she's already spoken to it, she should not, she should not correct herself. It's, if you communicated the idea, just move on. But it basically I can bear, so if I was speaking Spanish right now, I can barely hear her, so it won't interrupt me. So I'll continue speaking Spanish at my pace, and you will hear my words in English. And then when you speak in English, she translates it back to Spanish for me, so that we can be communicating live with each other. This again, it basically is when your goals are to facilitate communication and make it easier, that are the things you come up with. So the motivations are very important, especially for your viewers and listeners that are aspiring entrepreneurs or realized entrepreneurs. That communication is essential. Communication is the basis of all commerce, and you want to be able to. The more people you can communicate, the better opportunities and the more opportunities you offer your company. So this means that one day on Beacon, you'll be able to speak to any human being on the planet and communicate with them in their language. And so it's a little bit like the Star Trek Universal Translator. So that's exactly what inspired it. So we have that. I would demonstrate it, but she'll start repeating herself, and it's kind of annoying to me. So I don't want to get annoyed at an AI. So those are the things, and I think the one thing we haven't said, Adam, which your audience will be probably shocked, is that Beacon, this call is on a web browser. So you did not have to install anything. You clicked on the link, and you were right with me on the phone call, on the video call.
Yeah. Absolutely amazing. The ease of use, the features, everything that we talked about today to those listening in the audience, whether you're watching it or listening. I mean, this is something that you guys got to check out and make sure that you keep in tabs with everything that they're doing to update it. So Angel, I really appreciate you coming on to the podcast today. Can you let people know where to find Beacon, the URL, and any other show notes or things like that, links that you'd like to have people go to?
Yeah, Adam, if your audience and your viewers and listeners just think of the Beacon experience, then it'll be easy for them to remember beaconx.com. And that's where you get information. As you scroll down on that page, watch carefully the images, because they transform. Each image has a message about how we are different from the rest. And so it's not that your mouse is broken. It's on purpose that we slow you down as you're going down on the page. And then you kind of realize that there's things that are changing in front of you. And my favorite is there is one where you're on a video conference. There's a woman on a video conference call, and it has a person behind her looking over her shoulder. And as you're scrolling down, that person behind them disappears. And I love that one because that's so apropos for the way that we are. There's no one that is listening or taking notes about what you're saying on Beacon.
That's amazing. Yeah. So I'm excited to hear feedback on this episode. Definitely excited to continue seeing the journey that Beacon is on. And Angel, thank you so much for joining the Entrepreneur Podcast. Really appreciate you having you on today.
Thank you, Adam, for having me on the show.
And I want to thank you again to all the guests that are tuning into today's podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, download, and share our content. Leaving a 5-star review goes a long way. And thank you again to Half Coast Studios. If you're in St. Louis and looking to start your own podcast, then you seriously need to come check out everything that they have going on. See you all next week. And remember, entrepreneurs aren't born, they are brewed.
I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. Thank you for listening to Entrepreneurial Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney.